Yeah, Mark.
Ned, can we talk a little bit about this whole saga around the tanks in Europe? And there seems to be a lot of back and forth, and even like almost a dispute about, Germany doesn't want to send the tanks independently. You guys are saying it's their sovereign decision, but they seem to want the shield of allies. So, what can the administration do to support that process? And the administration has made an effort to keep NATO unified, and this seems to be a bit of an emerging clash. How does the Biden administration feel about this in Europe?
First, let me take the second part of your question first. At virtually every step of Russia's war against Ukraine, we've heard these prognostications or predictions that the transatlantic unity that we've marshaled and maintained is fraying at the seams, it's coming apart. In fact, we heard that even before the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine on February 24th. At every step of the way, those predictions have proved to be premature and just flat out wrong. Let me just give you one example. Look at what came out of the latest convening of the Defense Contact Group that Secretary of Defense Austin and Chairman Milley attended last week. And you saw new announcements from any number of allies and partners that speak to the tremendous amount of not only unity, but determination from countries around the world to continue to stick with it. France and Germany and the UK, they've all donated air defense systems to Ukraine. That includes from Germany a Patriot battery. The Netherlands is donating Patriot missiles and launchers and training. Canada has procured an ASAM system and associated munitions for Ukraine. The UK, of course, announced the provision of Challenger 2 tanks for Ukraine. Sweden announced it's donating CV-90 infantry fighting vehicles, an additional donation soon of Archer howitzers. Denmark, Latvia, other countries all announced new provision of support to Ukraine in the context of the Defense Contact Group, and that was just last week. Oh, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we also announced $2.5 billion of our own security assistance. Yes.
All of that lacks tanks, and that's the urgent request from the Ukrainians. So, like, great cooperation and agreement on all of those, but they say this is the most urgent one.
So,
you guys seem to have lacked
tanks. We have taken steps over the course of many months, including over the summer, to see to it that partners are in a position to provide tanks to Ukraine. Ukraine has tanks. I don't want to leave you with the misimpression that Ukraine doesn't have tanks. Ukraine has hundreds of tanks. So, point A. When it comes to
Are you saying their request is irrational?
When it comes to any particular capability, you've heard us say this before, and you actually summed it up. This is a sovereign decision on the part of each country to decide what types of security assistance to provide, what they're in a position to provide. We applaud all of our allies and partners for what they have done so far, and I just recounted some of that we've heard over the past 72 hours or so. We've previously, when it comes to Germany, applauded its announcements that they'll send Ukraine infantry fighting vehicles, MLRS systems, air defense capabilities, including the IRST air defense system, and, as I mentioned before, a Patriot missile battery. We also applaud the decision by the UK, as I mentioned before, to send these Challenger tanks to Ukraine. We will continue to do our part to provide Ukraine with what it needs. I mentioned our latest provision of security assistance that we announced on Thursday and Friday. That was the 30th drawdown of so-called presidential drawdown authority. 30 times now we have announced hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of security assistance to Ukraine. And on Friday, we announced that we'll provide more than 500 armored vehicles to Ukraine, in addition to the Bradley fighting vehicles that we've previously announced.
But what role
I see you having a follow-up question. I suspected you would go there. Our role there will be to continue to speak with our Ukrainian partners, to speak with our allies, including in the context of NATO, including in the context of the Defense Contact Group, to determine the needs of the Ukrainian fighters, and also what members of this coalition of some 50 countries are in a position to provide. we're not going to be prescriptive. The only thing that we're continuing to prescribe is that President Putin's aggression will continue to be a strategic failure. We are going to provide Ukraine with what it needs to take on the battle that it's facing at any given moment. We can say that until we're blue in the face, but more importantly, we can continue to demonstrate that. And I think you see that with the success that our Ukrainian partners have had on the battlefield, including with the security assistance that we've provided and some 50 other countries around the world have provided. Yes, in the back.
In the meantime,
In the back, yes, yes, yes,
This
please.
is Deutsche Welle
Yes.
for a follow-up, obviously, to the main question. What impact does Germany's hesitation have on the German-American relationship when it comes to not sending tanks now? Question number one. And Poland says that they want to send Leopards to Ukraine without the permit of Germany. Would Secretary Blinken support that decision?
These are questions for Germany. These are questions for Poland. In some cases, these are questions that our German allies will need to discuss with our shared allies. And my impression, having seen headlines that are just emerging, is that we may be hearing more from our German allies in the coming hours and the coming days. But I will say, Germany is a stalwart ally across the board, including in the context of the security assistance that it has provided to Ukraine. I've already mentioned some of the systems that Germany has provided, the IRIS-T system, the MLRS systems, the Patriot missile battery, not to mention everything else that Germany has spoken to over the past 11 months or so. If you would mention these systems and the amount of security assistance that Germany has to date provided on February 23rd of last year, I think there would have been a lot of people around the world who may not have believed you. Germany has stepped up. Germany has stepped up in a big way. It has provided quantity, but it has also provided capabilities that our Ukrainian partners need. There is no doubt in our mind that Germany is a reliable ally on this front and on every front.
Ned,
Poland?
I just want to follow up.
Is it on this? Is it on this?
Yeah, on this issue. You know, in the meantime, you are really pressuring Germany to send the Leopard tanks, right?
Said,
Why not send the A1?
Said, I just went to some length to say that it is a sovereign decision of each country.
A lot of pressure to send the Leopard tank. Why not send the A1M1 Apron? Why not? It's the best tank in the world.
Said, this is something that our colleagues at the Department of Defense have spoken to. I don't want to compare apples and oranges, and I think the comparison of these two systems as apples and oranges may understate the differences that we're talking about here. Let me just say that we are in direct, regular communication with our Ukrainian partners. We'll continue to provide them with what they need to defend themselves, given the nature of the battle that they are confronting at any given moment. Now, the other point I should make, and I made this to Humaira, is that we've already helped our Ukrainian partners to obtain tanks. We have worked with them to obtain former Soviet-made and Russian-made tanks that they're already trained on. They know how to use. They can put to use right away. They can repair them. They can keep them operational. And most importantly, they can be effective with them. We also announced, as I said before, on Friday, an assistance package that included 500 additional armed vehicles, in addition to the Bradley fighting vehicles that we announced for the first time a couple weeks ago.
Follow up Poland?
Just a quick follow-up.
I
I understand. Although, you know, we have not really seen any great tank battles in this war. We have seen that these tanks are being used as artillery. I mean, what? Maybe you could supplement that, send them some fancy artillery or something.
You are basically describing what we're already doing. Yes.
Then follow up
Yeah,
Poland, please.
follow up. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, so TV and Warner Bros. Discovery from Poland. So it's obviously a question about Poland's role here. So Poland wants to build, and it's a quote from the Prime Minister, at least a small coalition of countries that would send Leopards to Ukraine. Would you diplomatically help build such a coalition so that Poland and other countries in the region could send those Leopards to Ukraine?
We have marshaled, built, led a coalition of countries, of 50 countries, that is for over the course of the better part of a year, has provided billions and billions of dollars worth of security assistance to Ukraine. And we keep talking about security assistance because that's where the questions are coming, but I would be remiss not to mention the economic assistance, the humanitarian assistance that countries around the world have also provided. I don't want to suggest that security assistance is the only form of assistance our Ukrainian partners need. They need all of it, and they need it from as many countries as are positioned to provide it. So to answer your question, there is an extant coalition. The United States has helped to put this together, helped to lead it. We'll continue to do that.
How about Leopard coalition? To provide tanks.
Let me just make a quick point. We don't have Leopard tanks, as I think you know. This is a question for countries in Europe that do have them.
Turkey.
Okay,
Just
go ahead, Alex.
to understand your position on this, we're not questioning about the unity. That's clear, that part has been established, and thank you for that. The question is about the leadership. Germany says the US needs to lead by providing with one single arm so we can release all the Leopards.
Alex, I think oftentimes people in this room put words into my mouth. I think you might be putting words into the mouths of German officials. I'm not sure I've heard that from our German allies.
Yes, how do you respond on this?
Change the topic.
Are you asking a question on this?
No, not.
Okay, well let's try and move on in a minute. But anything else on this, Kylie?
Or maybe yesterday, but today or yesterday, the Polish Prime Minister made a remark saying that they're going to try and put together a coalition of European countries that would like to send these Leopard tanks, and essentially made the argument that they might do it without getting the approval of Germany. Would the US support those countries in doing that if Germany doesn't give them the green light?
This is not a question for us. This is a question for our German allies. This is a question for our allies that have these systems.
Could it be harmful to the NATO coalition if they did that?
Again, an indispensable element of the effectiveness that our Ukrainian partners have had has been the unity, the consensus, the unanimity that we've seen within this broad coalition, whether it's within NATO, whether it's within this grouping of some 50-odd countries that are providing security assistance to Ukraine. Of course, we put a premium on maintaining that consensus and that cooperation and that close coordination, but that's not a question for us. That's a question for our allies and partners with these particular.
So if I were going to say you guys would actually prefer unanimity, or you would want unanimity?
Of course, it has been indispensable to the success. And I'm not speaking to the provision of a system. I'm speaking.
And it would be indispensable on this occasion as well?
I am speaking in terms of the indispensability of the consensus, the coordination, the consultation that we have achieved and maintained with partners around the world in support of Ukraine. That's my point. Anything?